Hello and welcome again to the Missions Accepted Mission Cast, which is, kind of my version of a podcast. And it's where we're celebrating women who have had a mission that they've carried with them for a long time. And then at some point, often in their 40s or 50s, have decided to make the shift and stop doing what they were doing before, potentially, or do it alongside what they were doing before, but wanted to bring a mission into their life much more. And they have made a success of it and are making it part of living a meaningful life for them now. And it's all to inspire you if you're sort of sitting on the fence and trying to decide whether this would work for you. And so we're going to hear from some women who've done it. And I'd like to introduce Sam Kassir. Thank you so much for joining us, Sam. You've got a couple of missions you're kind of working on simultaneously here. So let's just start with, what it is that you were doing before the mission really became part of your life in a bigger way.
Okay, so immediately before, I was at home raising children, as a lot of women at my age have been doing so. But before that, I worked in hospitality and events. So I studied hotel management at university, went into the event and hospitality world, and spent quite a lot of time as a DMC, destination management company, where we used to organise incentive events coming in mainly from the US. And I loved what I did. I thrived on it. We used to organise events at historic, the historic royal palaces, museums, really big, groundbreaking events, and I thrived on it. But then I had a family, and it just, what I was doing wasn't sustainable. I couldn't keep going and raise the children as well. So I stopped.
And so then you had quite a time at home raising your children?
I did. I had a good 10 years or so, a very long time at home. The whole carpools and coffee mornings and toddler groups. I did all of that. I mean, it seems like a really long time ago now, but I did all of that.
Hopefully you've just about recovered.
just recovering. I'm in the teenage stage at the moment, which has its challenges.
Yeah. So then you got to a point of thinking, right, you do have some time to be able to do some paid work, as opposed to all the unpaid work that you were doing. So is this the point where your mission sort of raised its head for you?
Actually, my mission raised, the seed was sown. But in my early 30s, when I'd had my first two children, they were it was my first son. He was a baby. And it was when we saw the coverage on TV of the big tsunami that happened in the Indian Ocean, and the devastation. And I remember seeing those images, being really, really moved, very upset and distressed by it, but also having this burning desire to help, if I hadn't just become a mother, if I didn't have responsibilities, I'm pretty sure I would have wanted to get on a plane and I would have been out there doing my bit. And that was where the seed was sown. All I could think of was, I want to work for UNICEF. I want to work for the Red Cross. That's what I want to be doing. But then I had another baby, and then I had another one, and all of that sort of just went into the background. But it never completely went away. It was always there, milling about. One day I'd love to do this. One day I want to be in a job where I'm making a difference and where I'm helping. And I wanted to work for a charity.
And was it a specific kind of charity that you wanted to work for, or would any charity have done at that point?
No, it was quite specific. So I knew that I wanted to work for a charity where people, especially young people, are suffering in some way. Not that I wanted, obviously, to know they're suffering. It was, I wanted to help young people, anybody who is hungry or doesn't have a home. It's because my family have had a wonderful life. My children have had a brilliant home. They come home, the meal's on the table, they're safe. They know where they're going to sleep tomorrow night. They know where their next dinner is coming from. And I can't bear that there are young people and children out there that don't have that. And there is a lot.
So what was the path? I mean, this is the situation that so many people get to. Is they think, right, I've had this career of events and events, being at all these amazing places and things. How do I turn that into working for a charity? What's that path through that? Was that challenging for you, or was it fairly clear?
Yeah, and it wasn't a very linear path. It was a bit squiggly, and it sort of started off by accident in a way. I got to the point where my youngest was starting school, and I knew I needed to do something. I needed to go back to work, and I did consider going back to the events world, but I just felt that a lot of time had passed, and that I was done. I loved it. It wasn't that I hated what I'd done before. I still love it. I still love hospitality and events, but that door had closed for me, and I felt that I didn't need to reopen it. And then also what happens to a lot of mothers like me when they haven't worked for a long time, they're terrified of going back to work. You lose your confidence. You think, what can I do? I don't have any skills anymore. And in that time also, there'd been a massive movement with technology and digitally, especially social media happened in the time that I wasn't working. And now, here we are on LinkedIn. It's social media. This is what everyone's doing every day. There are careers based on social media. There's departments based on it. So I was really scared. But then I had an idea of getting a job in the local primary school. And I was working in the office, just helping out a few hours a week, and it gave me the confidence to then apply for the next position. I was only there for about 6 months, but then I saw a position come up for an alumni officer at a private girls' school nearby in Chertsey. And I was looking at the job description, and I was thinking, well, I can do this and event management, and I can do that. And yes, I've got those skills. So I applied. My husband actually was the one who encouraged me. He said to me, stop talking about it, because I kept going back to the advert. He said, stop talking about it, just do it. Just send off the application. You've got nothing to lose. So I did, and I got the job. And I spent 4 years at the school and setting up an alumni office. And in that time, I learned about fundraising. I attended I joined the Institute of Development Professionals in Education, which is a support group, and I used to attend conferences and forums, and this is where I learned about alumni relations, and I learned about fundraising. And then after about 4 years, I sort of felt that I was ready for the next step, but the school that I was at didn't do fundraising. So I then left and still wasn't quite sure how I was going to get to where I wanted to. At this point, you start to lose a bit of confidence. I became aware that there was a lot of young people out there in these charities who were qualified. They had degrees and qualifications in that particular field, be it international development or whatever. So I took on a job. It was actually an apprenticeship, internship at a bank, the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, and it's a development bank. And I was just curating their alumni program there as well. And there was no fundraising in that aspect. But then I knew after that I knew that I had to make a decision about which way I was going. And it was after that internship that I decided to actually actively start applying for charities. And that was quite challenging, because I was up against people who had more experience than me, people who had experience in major donor fundraising and corporate partnership fundraising. And I had a few interviews that didn't necessarily go so well, but for each interview I learned something. I would ask for feedback, and I took that feedback and I used it, and I then was offered a position at Compassion in World Farming, and it was a 1-year maternity contract, which was great because it meant that I could dip my toes into fundraising and see how I liked it. And also Compassion in World Farming is an animal welfare charity, but they also campaign for regenerative farming practices, because factory farming is not only very cruel to animals, it's very, very, very bad for the environment and the planet. Without a thriving planet, then there is no future for our young people. So it was definitely the direction that I wanted to go in. I had brilliant managers at Compassion in World Farming. They taught me loads, and they took a risk with somebody who hadn't actually worked in fundraising. Loved it, really enjoyed it. And then as it was coming towards the end of my contract, I started looking around, and this is how the opportunity at Land Aid came up. And Land Aid is the property industry charity. So I did have the choice to stay at Compassion in World Farming, and I did think about it because it was a brilliant mission there. But ultimately, my passion was to work for a charity that campaigns to end youth homelessness, and I've only just started. I'm very new to Land Aid, but I started just before Christmas. But I am where I want to be. I feel that I'm really on my mission now, and I've reached. I'm on the right journey now. There was a few forks in the road, a few little squiggles, but that I can see the straight road ahead of me now.
It's so lovely to hear that story, because it's so typical, actually. And I think that that it is this road, and there's little forks, and you learn different things at different stages, and at some point it comes together and you feel like you have the things that you need. And obviously there's more things to learn, because there always is.
Yes.
But what was sort of your mindset like during that, on the days when you're thinking, I don't know how to get from here to there? How did you sort of keep yourself dedicated to that path?
There were some days where it was really hard, particularly when I was working at the bank, because I was working in a very large communications department, and I felt in over my head a lot of the time. Not actually with what I was doing in alumni relations, just in the corporate environment in some ways. And also there was an element of imposter syndrome there, because I felt that I was working with people who were hugely qualified, doing what they were doing. I'd sit in meetings, and all these different terms would come up, and I'd be constantly there on Google thinking, well, what does this mean? What does that mean? And then I would realize that some of these things that people were talking about were things that I knew, that it just didn't have a name. Things like KPIs, which I was like, what is a KPI? What are they talking about? And then I'd look it up. I was like, well, I know what that is. I just didn't know it was called a KPI. So, you have days when you really doubt yourself, and you think they must all think, who is this woman? She's too old. She's past it. She shouldn't be here. And no one was really, I don't think anybody was thinking that. But, I just kept going. And I think what's really important is that I don't mind putting myself out there, and if I make a mistake, I think, well, you know what, I will take that mistake and I will learn from it, and that's what got me through. And also, I didn't mind the fact that I learned to not mind the fact that I was going in where everybody managing me is usually much younger than me now, and I had to say to myself, well, they've got a lot to teach me. And I go in with that mindset all the time, and I just and I say, well, I'm here to learn, please teach me, knowing that I've also got experience to offer. So
and that I think is really interesting as well, because I think often people think, I don't know how I could reinvent the experience that I've already had into something that someone else is going to employ me in a completely different field. So are there some advantages of actually coming into this it's slightly later in life with all the experience that you bring?
Yeah, definitely. It's actually something that I used to mention in my interviews sometimes when the opportunity came up. I think that age and maturity and life experience gives you confidence. I'm not, like I said, I'm not scared to put myself out there. And I think that a lot of that comes with age. If I make a mistake, as I've said, I would learn from it and I would move forward. And I think that I use that. And it's about, one of the terms that people say now is about bringing your whole self to the workplace. And I bring my whole self to the workplace. I try not to talk too much, but I do talk about my children. I talk about my life, because all of that is what's made me who I am now, and everything I've learned in motherhood and in my previous roles, and in trying to start this new second career, everything I've learned has brought me to who I am now and what I bring to the role that I do.
And what would, if someone was thinking about doing this, switching from what they've done before, or which is like your second mission, which is encouraging women who have been
Very much,
parenting
yes.
for a number of years and might be slightly nervous about getting back into the workforce, especially into a new career, what would you say to them? What would you like to have heard?
Well, other than speak to Susie Butcher, she's a brilliant coach. I would like to have heard somebody say, it's okay, just go and do it, give it a go. It's okay to start, not at the bottom necessarily, but it's okay to go in at entry level. That people are generally nice. People out there are encouraging, especially in the charity world. I've found that everybody is very supportive of each other. I've had the warmest welcome at Land Aid, and I've had the warmest welcome at Compassion and Wild Farming, and everybody wants, they're encouraging me. It's not, and that's a good feeling. I would also say that again, working in charities, you find that there is something for everyone. So I have a lot of friends who are the same age as me, who, like me, took lots of time off, and they're terrified to go back to work. But they've actually got amazing skills, as well as being mums and having managed homes and families. They've got accountancy skills, and they've got HR skills, and executive assistant, all the admin skills that you need. All of these can be brought into any career. They're such transferable skills, and they can use them. And I think it's just about just taking the plunge and going for it.
And especially if they've got a mission that is
Definitely
of value to our world.
Yes.
While those people are holding back, we're not getting the benefits of all that experience and their passion.
Absolutely. Having a mission is, it doesn't have to be working for charity. Obviously, for me, the mission is working for charity. And but I've got friends who have them. I've got friends who've become nutritionists and reflexologists and counselors, and these are all amazing missions. But the thing is, they're passionate about what they do. And I guess this is the message also, is to find your passion, find your mission, because that's what gets you up in the morning. I get up every day and know that after I've done the school run, I'm going to sit down at my desk, and do my work, or I'm going to go into London and meet my colleagues, and I'm going, whatever I do is going to be towards ending youth homelessness, and that's that's the mission that I'm on.
Sam, that's fantastic. Do you give us the website for Land Aid, in case anybody wants to check that out and see, that might have appealed to someone else's mission. So,
yes, it's landaid.org, I think. Oh, do you know what you've just sent me?
I know that's probably
because I've just
that's fine, because you've only just started. So
because I've just started, and my last one. Hang on 1 second. I got it wrong. It is .org. When you just have a moment, you think, oh my goodness, it is.
Yes, well, that happens to someone else.
It is landaid.org. And it's a brilliant mission to work to end youth homelessness, to help young people who are experiencing homelessness or at risk of it. There's nothing more there's nothing more satisfying than knowing that what you're doing is helping.
Sam, thank you so much. And I'm very grateful that you found your mission and that you have followed that path to be doing the work that you're doing. And I think you'll be an inspiration to others who are thinking about doing the same thing.
Thank you, Susie. This has been a pleasure.